shooting down in the woods. He wouldn't leave it even if he could. 'Cause life is good, yeah!
HIckok45 here, your internet shooting companion, coming to you from Middle Tennessee, the home of, well, lots of people, lots of country music stars. We always brag about Alvin York and Dolly Parton, of course, and they're not necessarily in Middle Tennessee, they're from Tennessee. Dolly's from Sevierville over in East Tennessee, around Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Alvin York from, I believe it's Jamestown, up that area, kind of northeast of Cookeville. Going to take a run over there and check out the museum there, the Alvin York Museum, one day, and looking forward to seeing that, actually. But anyway, we have lots of folks in Tennessee. Country music comes to mind, of course, although there's more than just country music here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a very diversified city and economy, as Nashville and Tennessee likes to brag about, justifiably so. When recession hits and bad economy, bad economic times, as we have had some in recent years, right? Tennessee is not immune to it, but because of the diversified economy, we've got a little bit of the car industry, music industry, banking is big in Nashville, printing, publishing, just all kinds of things go on around Nashville, farming. What else? Lots of strip clubs. No, I'm not kidding, I guess. There are quite a few in Nashville, I guess, as in every town. But there's just a lot of different industries, businesses, and, things going on in Nashville. It's fairly diversified. So it's a good place to be. Hopefully where you live is a pretty good place to be. So anyway, I'm here in Nashville. Well, I'm not really in Nashville, but I'm about 30 minutes from Nashville, so I tend to call it Nashville. You probably do the same thing. If you live outside a city, or whatever the town is closest to you, the largest town you generally say you're from, right? It might be a really small town. You might live out in a hollow somewhere, 5 miles from a little town with a population of 15 people, and that's maybe where you're from. I don't know. I guess really what we do is we mention the town that most people would be familiar with, that is the closest to us. How's that for the long way around the barn saying it? So I got a story about that too. Remind me to tell you if I forget today, okay? Before I finish this brilliant broadcast, you don't let me forget to tell you a little story about that. But anyway, back at you here on I'm kind of midweek here, yakking at you instead of, as I do weekends quite often. I guess maybe because I'm a semi-retired guy, I'm a little more flexible, but mainly it's just whenever the mood strikes me. I've got a few things maybe I could yak about, and maybe I haven't yacked at you for a week or two, and so I just come out here to my favorite room, the man cave, as John calls it, and just soak in all the ambience of big containers of 44 caliber cartridges and 45 caliber cartridges. There's some 45-70s and all that good stuff, not to mention the Dillon precision calendars, and if you have one of those, you know what I'm talking about. Before I forget it and get off rambling about who knows what, the tree leaves I see out there, or an ant, or guns, or whatever, a cigar, let me go ahead and tell you that little story that I teased you with. A friend of mine was in Korea, not the war, but stationed in Korea, a fellow I used to teach with back in the 70s, longtime friend, and he had a story that related to what I was talking about there, how we say we're from, whatever people are going to be familiar with, the closest town. He was in Korea. I think he was in an adult beverage establishment, I believe he said. And anyway, he's struck up a conversation. The soldier, they got to talk about where they're from. He said, well, and I guess the other guy asked him, said, where are you from? He said, Nashville. He said, oh, I'm from Columbia. And that's a little town, what is it, about 25 miles south of Nashville, something like that. I mean, it's a pretty good sized town, actually. So anyway, he said, well, I'm from Columbia, and of course my buddy said, well, actually I'm not from Nashville. I said Nashville, but I'm from Columbia. And my buddy actually is from the town of Columbia, Tennessee, which was funny. And this other guy, saying, well, he's from Columbia. But anyway, and then the other guy turns out he's not really from Columbia. He's actually from, I think it was maybe Hohenwald, which is, I know it sounds odd, that's the name of a little town, which is smaller than Columbia, but in Middle Tennessee. So he says, I'm not actually from Columbia myself. I'm from Hohenwald. So it's kind of funny. I believe I got that story right. I haven't heard him tell in about 25 years, but just, it was funny, to hear him tell that, because that exact thing, where we just say, I'm from that. I mean, I would do the same if I was in Korea, or if I'm anywhere, if I'm from Nashville, because I live in a really small town outside of Nashville, no one's heard of unless you live in the area. So if you say I'm from like Jamestown, Tennessee, I mentioned earlier, where Alvin York is from, who knows where Jamestown is, or who even knew there was a Jamestown in Tennessee, unless you just happen to know that, or live in that part of the state, or any other state or little town that a lot of people have not heard about. So that we just do that. It's kind of funny, halfway around the world, they're playing that little game. It turns out they both know all these little towns, and they're just saying Nashville and Columbia. Neither one of them is from Nashville. And one of them is from Columbia, and the other one who said he's from Columbia is from some smaller town. So kind of funny. I knew you'd find that boring, so I thought I'd share it. And I guess this is a good time to remind anybody who is new to the radio shows that maybe a little late in the reminder, that this may not be what you expected it to be. On rare occasions, somebody will land on one of these, and it might be the first thing they've heard, or they have seen one video and they see a radio show with a cool snapshot, of some firearm, and they're thinking they probably don't know what they're going to see. Why is it called a radio show? But anyway, be ready, be prepared, be advised. It's just me rambling, okay? And so that's what I do. It's what I do best, I guess. And speaking of that, we do talk about firearms, though, in the radio show, and I've got a beauty lying beside me here. And isn't it interesting how so often I am drawn to these 6-shooters? And see if you can tell what it is. Well, it's a revolver, right? It'd be kind of difficult to pinpoint what exact revolver it is, but boy, just take my word for it. It is gorgeous. I'm so delighted. I won't say misplaced, and that doesn't sound good, does it? If you say you lost a gun, whatever type it might be. But I do have quite a few, and lots of safe space, and they'll get back behind things, and I'll be digging around. What did I do with that, whatever it might be? I haven't shot it in a while, and I just think, well, I'll run across that. You probably have the same situation if you have very many firearms. You have some that are fairly readily accessible that you shoot pretty often. You got kind of that second tier of firearms that you put in the back or a little bit further, but you don't get those out as often. Then maybe a third tier that you rarely ever shoot it, or you just get one stuck there. It's a place to put it, it barely fits back behind everything, whatever it might be. And if you're like me, I keep mine in these socks, these gun socks, so they don't get scratched up, in the safe, banging against each other. I've probably, over the years, whatever damage I've had to firearms, which is very little in terms of scratches and that kind of thing, it's always in the safe is where it happens. I know you make fun of me for throwing my guns around on the shooting table. Hey, it's a soft piece of leather. They're tough guns. You're not going to hurt them, but the only damage I get is rubbing against each other, in the safe or something, if I don't have one in a sock. And one of the worst things I've done, speaking of that, I don't know if I told you, was carrying my guide gun on my shoulder on a sling when I was out at 10 Outdoors 9's place, we were doing that lawnmower kill. Wow, that goes back a ways, what, 3 or 4 years? And I had that, we were stalking that lawnmower. I had that 4570 over my shoulders. We were walking around and didn't know it, but it was rubbing against, what was it? Either a firearm on my hip or cartridges in a belt. I don't recall now, but it was rubbing against that. And so I did a little bit of damage to the bluing on the right side of the receiver. Really upset me. Even though it's a used gun, it was used when I bought it and it wasn't in perfect shape. But I just hate to do things like that. I don't mind normal wear and tear on a firearm. Gives them character, personality, shows you've used it. You know, that kind of thing doesn't bother me too much. Well, maybe that shouldn't bother me. Like, that's normal wear and tear, right? I mean, that's just in the course of events. That's the same kind of wear anybody would have when they're out hunting predatory lawnmowers, you know, in the woods, I guess. So I shouldn't worry about that either too much. But generally speaking, it's in the safe is where I get that in. But anyway, I digress again. I was looking for something, digging around, and I found my 629-4. And I will have to do a little research on that guy's channel. What's his name? HIckok45. Yeah, I'll have to look through his channel and remind him what videos he has used this gun in, or what videos he's done with this firearm, this beautiful firearm. I know he did a close-up because I remember doing it. John was, I don't know, that we were just getting started actually, I think, and I actually did that one myself, reaching around the tripod, and I remember that very vividly for some reason. Just, I know exactly where I did it, and the gun is just gorgeous. It was with that very first camera that we had as well, and so, you know, it wasn't high def, it wasn't all that clear even, but the gun was just beautiful in that feature film, in that film in which it was featured. And but what it is 629-4 stainless. Of course, that's what 629 means. The 6 indicates it's stainless, but it in 44 Magnum, but it's a highly polished stainless. And you know, to tell you the truth, I don't know if this was a special run, maybe one of the Lou Horton runs, or not. But it is. It's a highly polished. It looks like nickel. You would really think it's nickel, you know, to an untrained eye, including my own. If you first glance at it, it looks like a nickel gun. And the front of the cylinder is contoured. You know, it doesn't have the sharp edges, and so it's just had a little extra work. Again, color case hardened trigger and hammer. The stock or the grips are kind of custom too, I think. So it may have been a special run. I don't know, or come out of the Smith & Wesson Performance Center or something like that. I don't know. But man, it's a beauty. Oh boy, yeah, you all know already. I'm hopeless. I get a revolver in my hand, a nice revolver, and it's just it just reminds me that I like guns, right? And that you can appreciate it, most of you. Beautiful. So anyway, I've got it right here, and it's just a jewel. It has a 3-inch barrel. If you're not familiar with it, if you're new to the channel, and I always assume not as many new people are listening to the radio show, but I'm sure I'm wrong in a lot of cases. There's always going to be new listeners. But this is a 3-inch baby. I've got the other 3-incher, which is a newer one. I don't recall what dash it is. It's not that old, the Trail Boss. And it's a fine shooter. It really is. I shoot it as well as any of my little 44s. Well, little 4, there's only 2 I have, I guess. And they're essentially the same gun. Just this one, it goes back a little ways, the Dash 4. And you can look that up and, you know, see what it is. It doesn't have the pin barrel, doesn't go back that far. But it has the old style cylinder latch, and what else? That it doesn't have a key lock, of course, anything like that. And it's the older, well, kind of the older sights, I guess. But it's a red ramp front sight. It's a beautiful piece of wood and steel, if I do say so myself. Got to figure out a way to get him back in a video since I uncovered him. It's speaking of guns and firearms, hope you're enjoying some of the postings lately. We've been able to get some more suppressor action and some interesting firearms. It's actually the firearms like the MP5 or the M16s and those kinds of things that I find more interesting than the fact that they're suppressed. The suppressor is kind of a little icing on the cake maybe, or just something else that's interesting. But it's been fun having the opportunity to shoot some different firearms that I haven't really shot, I guess, really in the last couple of months. I don't know, since late spring. There have been several firearms that have been on my wish list, I guess, for a long time that I would like to have an opportunity to fire, like an MP5. Well, I had fired one, but not as much as I did when we had one here at the compound. And the Sten gun, that tricked out Remington 700. What else? M16, of course. I'd fired those, but it's just fun to have that and to be able to actually do videos with them and have them for at least a few hours where you can learn more about them, take them apart, shoot them, different ways, different scenarios. So it's been a lot of fun. The barrel shoot we posted recently, the M16, the select fire. That was fun. Somebody caught it, and I almost did not catch it. Well, I did, of course, at the time. But if you'll notice in that video, we had a hang-up or a malfunction that you wouldn't normally notice. But just before the barrel tipped over, the rifle stopped firing. I still had my finger on the trigger and it quit firing, so I figured it was empty. And, those things empty so fast. I think I fired about 20. Someone actually counted. It was 22 rounds, versus 30 or 29, in a full magazine. So, it spews them out so quickly. And it did seem like it emptied awfully quick, but it's empty, because it just quit firing. And, but on that second magazine, it I forget what it did. I don't think it hung up on a round. I think a round just didn't fire is what it was. And a light firing pin strike or something, but it quit firing. The barrel fell over, so it looked planned. It was, but it actually quit on a malfunction. How's that for timing? I like to time my malfunctions like that. So, anyway, as I mentioned in a comment to somebody, I forget what the problem was. That was the one that Somsico brought by. And they knew what the issue was. It was something about the headspace and the bolt. They had a different bolt in it for some reason. There's some different things there. And so we just got my Colt 6920 upper and put on that and went to town. And it shot fine. It was fun. I felt like I was firing my own Colt, AR, but just having the fun switch installed is what it was like, which is kind of what it was. So we had some more fun with that. You'll see. All right. So anyway, I've had fun. Lots of different firearms. It's always a thrill to do that and to bring those to you and let you enjoy them too. So if somebody brings something to us, that they're really bringing it to everybody, bringing it to all of you all, anybody that watches the channel. So we try to give you a good look at it and have a little fun with it, tell you a little bit about it eventually, and just kind of shoot. Speaking of revolvers, I've had several requests to get the Model 19 back out, the old Smith & Wesson, and finally did. So we'll post that up here one day. But that was fun to get that back out. And that's the thing that keeps I guess this project interesting to me. I like firearms. I like to shoot. If I was always just rotating through 5, 6, or even 10 different firearms, to shoot, I don't know if I'd be quite as enthusiastic all the time about shooting. It is a nice, what should I call it? It's just nice. Very fortunate for a long time I've had lots of firearms. Most of my life, I guess, you get right down to it, and probably have even more now than I ever have. And then that combined with the ones that people lend us. So I really do have a lot of fun, get opportunities to shoot many different firearms. and enjoy them and learn about them. So, but it's always fun to get the classics out. The revolvers, just anything. 1911. There's so many really cool guns, and of course, people like to argue about all of them. Which ones are the best? Quote unquote. And it just really depends, doesn't it? What you're going to do with it. What is the purpose of that firearm? I'm naturally attracted to, I guess in terms of historical firearm, maybe any firearms, but I'm naturally attracted to firearms, and many of you too, I think, that were actually used or are used. When I think about a time period in history, firearms that were carried in the West, lever guns, shotguns, most common handguns, same for the early 1900s, the 1960s, 1980s, firearms that have a history, like the Model 19, it's carried by so many police, the Glock 19, the Colt Single Action Army, the 1873 Winchester, whatever it might be, the Garand, the Sten gun, all these firearms that were used, some of them in some very interesting situations, and some over a long period of time, and just makes for interesting shooting, and to think about that. So those are always fun. But the variety of firearms is a really nice advantage that I've had in order to keep the interest up. And I found myself years ago, long before the YouTube project, it's kind of the way I've always operated. I have always had quite a few firearms. And I hear somebody coming. John? There's John coming in. Why don't you say hi to the folks, John? Come on there, say hi.
Hi, folks.
That's about all I can get out of John. I'll have to interview him here for you, make him talk. Okay, I couldn't get John to talk. We keep thinking we'll get him at least in a radio show, and I'll interview him. That was a plan about a year ago, actually. And I'll put some pressure back on him to do that, let him talk to you about camera work and that sort of thing. You might find that interesting. So, but anyway, I think I was talking about always having had a variety of firearms since way back. And, I know where I was going with that. One of the things I've always done is you probably can relate to this, I may just be really gung-ho with my modern semi-automatics for a month, just shooting different ones, trying different loads or something, shooting some different matches and different things, and then I miss the old revolvers, and then kind of go on a binge where I'm just going through my revolvers and shooting them, enjoying them, doing some hand loading up some 44s and some 357s, and just enjoying the revolvers, and then maybe muzzle loading for a while, some rifles, shotguns, and then kind of go back through the circle, just whatever I'm in the mood for, whatever I'm in the mood to shoot. And you probably can relate to that, whether you have 5 guns or 55 guns. I guess I better be vigilant here, be careful. I'm sitting here in the reloading room, but I've got a couple of different doors open to the outside, and I thought I heard somebody out there. I didn't hear John roll up. He came in the vehicle instead of the Harley, so I didn't hear him pull in, and all of a sudden there was somebody. Wow, sounds like I need to be armed. I should not have all those anti-gun attitudes I have. Otherwise, I'd probably have a loaded firearm on me. What if somebody actually did sneak up on me out here, in the lower 40 acres in the woods? So, actually, I probably did have a firearm handy. And you know what? It just happens to be, speaking of that, I don't have a self-imposed rule. I can only talk about one firearm. What that sound like? You're right, Glock 27. It was hot in an inside the waistband holster. So wouldn't that have been cool, huh? Could have had a shootout right here on the radio if that had not been John. Could have been a bad guy coming in here trying to sneak up on me. We'd have caught it on tape, right? You all would have been witnesses. You could have testified in court that I was justified. I was just minding my own business, telling boring stories on the radio, on YouTube, when somebody came in and tried to hurt me. So anyway, yeah, Glock 27, one of my favorites. Wow. Whole nother subject, huh? One of my favorites. Still the most frequently asked question about which gun to buy. Oh man, getting a CCW, carry permit, not sure which gun to buy, which one to go with, and never ends. Yeah, I don't mean the questioning. I don't mean I'm tired of the question. I mean the quest never does end. It's funny because when people ask me that, it's not like somebody repeatedly asking me, well, how tall am I, or how far away is the 80-yard gong, or what state do I live in? It's not like that. I understand there's new people coming in every day, over 1,000. So I understand, people just don't know yet, and it takes time to figure out the insanity here at HIckok45, right? The channel. And so I have patience with that, but not that I answer them. I mean, they'll figure it out, but I don't have time to answer all of them 100 times a day. But I understand those questions, and that's the different. People asking about what's the best pistol to carry or to buy and to learn to shoot. All that question is a difficult question. That's where the frustration is there. That's just a very difficult question to answer. People with lots of experience have not answered that question for themselves satisfactorily yet. That's what I'm getting at. I still, after all these years and all this experience, go through this process of deciding which firearm to carry. What would be my ideal carry gun? Now, maybe it's partly because I have so many. And to pat myself on the back, maybe it's also because I do have several that I feel like I can shoot well and would work just fine for me. That I would be very well armed with a number of the firearms I have. And I have holsters for all of them that I like, and the holsters would work well. So that's part of it maybe. But I tell you, one reason we did that video on the Glock Fab 4 or whatever I called it, the Glock 26, the 27, the 19, the 23, and you can extrapolate that to any brand of firearm. I'm just more familiar with the Glock, always have been, and have always carried them, it seems. Whether it's the Beretta, the smaller Berettas, the larger Berettas, or the M&P or the XDs, whether you carry a high capacity XD, a mid-size 3.8 or the 3.1, the XDS, it's the same with any line of firearms. Of course, I tend to, when I talk about Glocks, I know I'm excluding other, but it's just something I'm more familiar with, and a lot of you are too, even though you like a lot of different pistols. To me, it just seems more clear-cut with some of those Glock models. You got a small one, the baby Glocks, you got the mid-size, and you got the full size. But I still go through that. I mean, as I speak, I really do. We just did another video with the XDS 9mm yesterday, in fact. And not sure when we'll post. It's just a chapter 2. Got the thing out and shot it some more. Had fun with it. I've been carrying it in the pocket holster for about 2 weeks. And cargo pants, not the cargo pocket. Now, when I say cargo pocket, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, yeah, you can carry a brick in a cargo pocket. You can carry a 2-liter in a cargo pocket. I don't think I'd do that. It might get shot, right? But no. When I wear cargo pants or cargo shorts, I put my keys in the cargo pocket, the outer pocket. My pocket knife or something. I put other things in that pocket. I like a pocket holster in that main slash pocket. That's it just rides better, conceals better. It just doesn't flop around, bang against your leg or So now I know people who do put one in their cargo pocket, and that works okay. It's you can get a bigger gun there, a little more leeway. I know someone who carries a Glock 23 and has for years in a cargo pocket. And hard to argue with. If you can carry a Glock 23 fully loaded in a when you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt, you can't argue too much with it. But now I know a lot of trainers whom I respect, would probably give you down the road for sticking one in a cargo pocket or that sort of thing, where it might not be accessible in a second and a half, and that sort of thing. Yeah. So there's always disadvantages. It's a trade-off. But again, I'm not going to ramble off topic here too badly. It's just really difficult deciding. I'm carrying a Glock 27 today inside the waistband. And, if I have anybody listening here that's new to shooting, new to carrying, just getting a carry permit, trying to decide on a carry pistol, good luck, because it really is a process. I've talked about that before, and we've got some in video. Maybe I need to do another video on that, but I don't have a lot of answers. All I can do is give you a lot of the questions that you've got to ask yourself and help maybe walk you through some of the issues that you face and decisions that you have to make, because you do have to make them in the size. For every advantage in a particular firearm, there's a disadvantage, and it's just hard. Now, if you live up in northern Alaska or somewhere, it's not so much a problem. Somewhere where it's always chilly and you always have an outer garment or something, it's not a problem. And there are ways around that anywhere, but it just depends on what's comfortable for you and how you can carry. It's easy to say, well, I'm not carrying anything except a full-size 1911, or a full-size Glock or a full-size M&P or whatever. And it's easy to say that. I tell you what, you talk to anybody that carries every day concealed all year round, and you won't find many people who carry a full-size 1911 year round, and at least in a hot climate. Okay, so you have to be real. A lot of those people that claim to carry a 45, big old full-size 1911 all the time, that thing is probably not on their person a lot of times, to tell you the truth. They find themselves, depending on the dress and where they're going, that thing has to stay home or in the car quite often, is my guess. Now again, I'm talking about folks in mainly this country and in states, which is most states now, where it's very, very common to carry a firearm and to have a carry permit. I know if you're from a state where that's not legal, or you are from a country where that's not legal, it probably sounds really out there to you to some extent. Even though if you follow the news at all, and what's going on in the firearms world, you should know by now that millions of people in this country carry, just like they carry their wallet. Plus, it also seems so extreme. I know if you're not used to firearms, if you're new to firearms, and maybe in your world, wherever that might be, people don't carry firearms. You don't even know anybody who hardly owns firearms, much less carries them, unless they're in law enforcement or something. Then it does seem a little extreme. And I guess there are steps we all go through. I remember, it was in the 70s, running into a fellow who got to chatting with in a gun shop who had a permit. He was in the music business and was a part of a fairly successful country music quartet, I think. But anyway, he had a carry permit, and he showed me his revolver, and I thought, wow, that is amazing. I mean, I remember this was like early 70s. I remember I hadn't even been into guns in a big way, all that long, and I was just so impressed and just it was almost shocking to me. This guy, he had a shoulder holster and had that thing on under a lightweight jacket, and he wasn't a cop. I thought, wow, that was unbelievable that he could do that legally. And I remember thinking that would be cool in a way, but also that just seemed almost risky. It was just carrying that wherever he went. So I can still remember how that seemed to me. But that was a long time ago, and the consciousness has changed. And one thing that anti-gunners or people who are just not around firearms don't take into consideration, or they can't really appreciate it, is the fact that someone who is extremely familiar with firearms, like a lot of you and me, and we know how to be safe with them, we know how to select a good holster, a safe holster, then having a firearm on your person, even though it is a serious responsibility, it's not that big a deal. You just go about your day and you treat it with respect, and you know where it is, and you remember how to keep it in the right place, and it's just not that big a deal. Whereas someone who's never carried a firearm or even shot a firearm, again, that seems probably really extreme, and but many of you and I know that it's not. So to me, it's like a wallet, or my keys, just keeping up with it. Well, anyway, I've rambled about that enough. What else do we want to talk about? What else can I bore you with here? This morning it was supposed to be raining right now, but it's not. I know you're highly interested in that, especially if you live in Denmark or Australia, right? Where it's going to be raining today in Middle Tennessee. But it looked like on the satellite rain was moving in, and I've got my car in the shop. John's going to take me over and pick it up here in a little while. But to have some reupholstery done. No, I didn't shoot the seat accidentally. But actually, to tell you the truth, a firearm is responsible for part of the need. And that is very interesting that right there where my right hip hits the driver's seat, it has worn through. I wonder why. Could be there's a lot of Glock wear there, right, on that particular spot on the seat. But anyway, I need to have both front seats reupholstered anyway on my old Element, and having that done today. And but it was supposed to be raining, and I wanted to go to the post office. So I checked out the satellite, see where the rain was, where the cloud cover was before I got on the Harley. And it was, it looked like I had a couple hours at least before it moved in, which I did and do. So I rode over to the post office, got the mail, went by the grocery, came on back, managed email and some different things. But I was thinking, riding back, what a crazy world it is, how interesting the times are, in which we live, how, old school and new school are blended so often. I'm cruising along in this old technology, this old Harley. But with the click of a button, I can determine what the weather is, and via a satellite up there in the sky, know whether it's going to rain on me or not. And I guess that's the way it's always been, any particular time. And I think some people are reluctant to tap into new technology. You probably know some folks that they refuse to use a smartphone or a GPS or whatever it is. I can think back through the years. I remember an older lady refusing to buy a clothes dryer. This is back 40s or 50s or 60s or whenever. I remember the stories about her. Didn't want to buy one of those newfangled dryers. She'd just hang her clothes up like her mother did, and that she'd always done. Didn't want to, just things like that. There are people always reluctant to look at a newer technology. You see it in the firearms world. Not that we all have to jump on the newest, hottest thing, of course. I'm not really one to do that. But if it's something that works and is extremely reliable, it's hard to ignore it. Still see the comments, don't you, on the internet about polymer in handguns or polymer pistols, junk plastic guns. You see a lot of that, actually. And of course, the irony there is, been my experience, many of these so-called junk plastic firearms are more reliable than some of the old ones. So my guess is that probably back around 1875, maybe on up into the 1880s, I guarantee you there were people sitting around making fun of those cartridge guns. Thinking, old percussion's good enough. It's always gotten the job done. Or my muzzle loader's always gotten the job done. Don't need any of his fancy cartridges. Of course, Hickok, he was, reports I've read, he was still wearing his two Navy Colts, which are percussion revolvers, when he was shot dead, I can't think of the name of Deadwood, in Deadwood there at the card table where he was killed. He died with his Navy Colts on, from what I've read. And I read that recently somewhere, and I didn't remember whether he had them on or not, to tell you the truth, if that's what he was carrying, but this account said that's what he was carrying. I don't know, I have to research it further, but that was 1874, I believe, when he was assassinated from behind. And the cartridges had been around since the late 60s. There were, the conversions of the 1860 Army, I guess the Navy Colt. There were cartridge conversions, and then plus the Colt single action was out there, when in 1874. But yet there he was with his Navy Colts percussion revolvers. So I'm sure there were a lot of people very reluctant to give up the old technology once they had it mastered and it worked. But yeah, how could you argue with that? Man, if you've messed with a percussion revolver, you've seen me fight them, in some videos. There's just a lot of good reasons to move into the cartridge era, no doubt about it. But now that 1851 Navy Colt, like Hickok carried, that thing, that of course was I think the first percussion revolver full size that was that size that really fit the hand beautifully, and is what the 1873 Colt single action is patterned after in terms of size. So it would be hard to give it up, because boy, those things just feel great. The only negative there is, of course, that ignition system that's not as reliable. Generally speaking, you run into some issues there. But anyway, that's always the battle: new school versus old school. I've always tried to, I say at least in the decades I can recall, been into stuff, try to take the best from the new school, things that work, without getting into the trendy side of it or the fashion side of it. A lot of people just kind of float from one thing to the next, whatever's trendy or fashionable. That's never been a concern of mine. You can probably tell the way I dress and act. I don't care too much about fashion. Never been a slave to that. But if something works, this is hard for me to ignore. I always have admired things that are simple and practical and just really work well. That's what led me to the Glock. I could not ignore it. The darn thing just worked, and easy to shoot well, and so I still prefer the romance of a 1911, or a good old revolver. But something works, it works. You can't argue with it, can you? It's just like the internet. What are you gonna do? Just ignore the internet because it's new, or because there are some problems with it? Think about where we'd be as shooters. The internet has just opened up the entire world to us, hasn't it? We order things online, we get information so easily and quickly about what loads or ammo or firearms, anything we're interested in. Of course, it's the same for any topic. But I just like the old school stuff and the new school stuff, I guess you could say. It's kind of fun to go. It's kind of, talk about a contradiction or an oxymoron. I find myself online on the internet searching an internet forum to learn about muzzle loading firearms, to find a source for some mini balls or something. Wow. Or for a flintlock, buying flints off the internet, and having them brought to my door by a FedEx, courier. It's a weird combination, isn't it? Anyway, that struck me as I was riding along in a Harley. Maybe it's dangerous. I probably better not ride the Harley on days when I'm going to do a radio show, because who knows what might come to mind. Speaking of the juxtaposition of low tech and high tech, or old school and new school, it's it always, I find it interesting thinking I'm sitting here in the reloading room talking on this $50 or $60 little recorder, and, you know, in a matter of hours, be able to stick it on the internet and somebody in Australia can listen to it. It's just really, really strange, isn't it? And speaking of low tech, it's acting up on me. Can't find the setting, but there's something really, I think it's haunted, what I'm trying to say, because about 4 shows back, I recorded a segment or two, and then I was going to play a little bit of it back, and it came out in slow motion. You know, some of the slow-mo sounds at the end of our videos with me sounding like an ogre or something. That's the way it all sounds if I try to play it back now. It plays back in like ultra slow motion, and I can't even make out what I'm saying. And so I can't even, just for your benefit, so you'll understand even further why I would post something that maybe makes very little sense. I can't even play it back. I just go ahead and talk for an hour or so here, and then I just go stick it on a computer, take it in the house and stick it on a computer before we process it. I can't even play it back. How crazy is that? But it's interesting that it works fine. Once I download it or upload it to the computer, then I can click on the file and it plays just fine. But playing back on the recorder, it's like it's underwater and it's gotten weird, and so I can't even do that. I just have to trust myself that I didn't say anything too terribly stupid and didn't insult any of the listeners, any of you all, too badly. So we take it from that. It's just the strange world we live in, and it's great in so many ways too, isn't it? Because we have this capability. Really, for me to spread brainlessness worldwide in just a matter of minutes or seconds. You young people listening, just keep in mind, this is just the ramblings of a crazy man, just having a little fun. This is not the big show here. This is just me and the recorder having a little fun. And nothing too profound, just discussing a few things about shooting and other things. So if your lifelong goal is to become a radio broadcaster or something, and don't be looking to me for tips, okay? You should be able to tell that by now. By the way, you might have seen a comment or two I made on, I don't know, video somewhere. But I was at the Tomato Festival in Rutledge, Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. No, I wasn't invited there to make an appearance or anything, or to throw tomatoes or to shoot tomatoes. Had never been there. My wife found it in a magazine. And it's one of those deals where, you know, they have booths set up and different things. They were supposed to have a Civil War encampment. I thought the whole weekend, but it apparently was very small and was just for one day or something on Thursday of that week. So that was one of the attractions for me. I love to go to Civil War encampments or reenactments, but it had not been over there. So we decided to go over there, go for a little road trip, spent the night over there in East Tennessee, and went to the Tomato Festival in Rutledge, nice little town, about 30 minutes northeast of Knoxville. And it was pretty interesting. Actually bought a couple of tomatoes and some peaches and what else? I don't know. There was a car show in connection with it, some cool old cars and some of that kind of thing. But anyway, there I was at the Tomato Festival, and when you know it, run into a couple of viewers there. So I swore them to secrecy. You know who you are. I told them I'd find out where they live and burn their houses down if they told anybody I was at a tomato festival. Now, I tried to make up some other stories about how I was hired there as security or something, but nobody believed it. But anyway, it's one of those deals, though. If you're at a tomato festival, don't make fun of somebody else for being at the tomato festival, you know. So, but anyway, that was kind of fun. You never know where I'm going to run into a viewer. So I have to behave myself these days. That's really tough. You know, back a few years ago, I always thought, well, you know, once I finally get out of teaching, I won't have to worry about setting an example. I can go crazy. I can be totally wild, can't I? I can just go sit on the courthouse steps with a fifth of Jack Daniels if I want to. Not that I would do that. But no, I just never know where I might run into somebody that's going to be taking a picture of me misbehaving, so I've got to behave myself. Here I am at this stage in life, and I've got to behave myself. That's no fun. So anyway, Tomato Festival is cool. If you've never have been in East Tennessee, that's a really beautiful part of the state and the country. Over around the Smoky Mountains. Many of you have probably been to the Smoky Mountains. I think it used to be, I don't know if it still is, but the most visited park in the country, because it's on such a crossroads of several different interstates there. It's just not that hard to get to. There are a lot of people within 4 or 5 hours of the Smokies, and so it's a great place to go. It's very commercial, of course, over there in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. But if you prowl around, you find some interesting, places to visit, and some true crafts, some really interesting arts and crafts shops and that kind of thing that your wives or the family or you might enjoy. I enjoy that stuff. So anyway, great place to go, East Tennessee. Doesn't get any more beautiful than some of that country over there, no doubt about it. By the way, I don't know if you caught it or not. People get upset with me if I don't tell you about this, or even ahead of time sometimes. And I sometimes don't always do that. But I was on Tom Gresham's show Sunday. That would have been, August the 4th, I guess. And, of course, he archives all those at guntalk.com. His podcasts are all there and everything. I was on the first hour, about midway through the first hour. But just for about 10 minutes, sometimes I'll go ahead and make a posting, let people know I'm going to be on there. But then again, I think, well, you know what? What if I say something really stupid? I'm embarrassed for anybody to even know I was on there, because, that's live. And if I say something totally stupid right now, I could just erase it or not post it. But when I'm on somebody else's show, then, they have full control over everything, and so it's a little more risky. Not a big deal. I never really do fall into total stupidity, and I don't think I've ever had to eliminate anything on one of these radio shows for that reason or anything else. I might get a little too tongue-tied or decide that what I talked about was too stupid to post or something, but I don't really have problems generally. And but anyway, I still and the fact that it's a podcast, I catch those. The fact that they're showing his show is from 1 to 4, I think, on Sundays Central Time. But I rarely ever catch his show, live. I just catch it on podcast. So I almost forget or disregard, the fact that it's live. It's a live show because it's live whenever I watch it, or whenever I listen to it. So I catch it during the week, usually before the following week. And so I figure anybody wants to hear it, it's there. They can listen to it the same way I do. Nothing, no great revelations or anything. We just chatted about a few things, and that was that. But he's a good guy, and there's a lot going on. He's doing a lot on YouTube now. He's got this first person series he's really proud of, and they've done a good job with that, trying to simulate situations that we all could find ourselves in and try to make it as realistic as possible, which is hard to do, right? But they're making a really good stab at that, I'll have to say. Pretty interesting stuff. So anyway, I was on there. Anybody wanted to catch it, I was on Talking Lead. I guess that's been a couple, 3 weeks ago. Just for if you need some more yakking that you haven't heard yet. Try to hold the yakking down. One reason I take license in these radio shows, as I call it, is and really don't worry about getting off in a tangent, and don't worry too much about it being exciting and revealing exciting information. That's the reason for it. It's very relaxed, and in videos I'm relaxed, but still we have a kind of a mission. And a lot of people that watch the videos don't necessarily know me. You may feel like you really know me, like you just know me really well. You've seen all the videos, and you enjoy them, and you even like hearing me talk about stupid stuff, maybe, because maybe you can relate to me or something, or just the way I think. I don't know. That's scary if you can relate to the way I think, but a lot. But think about all the people, many thousands of people maybe that land on the videos, and they're not necessarily. They're looking for information on a M1 carbine, or they want to see one being shot, and they could care less about anything like this, the radio show or anything. So try not to ramble, too much in those videos, other than just kind of do what I like to do, and not make them too tight. And I can't do things unless I'm relaxed. I like to be relaxed and enjoy doing it, take my time, but then still move on through, and not do like I do here and yak about all sorts of things. So anyway, just wanted to mention those broadcasts where I ramble a little bit. I try not to ramble too badly on somebody else's show, and try not to dominate the conversation if I'm being interviewed. I tell you what makes it difficult sometimes, though, especially over the phone with like on Gun Talk, because I've done that 2 or 3 times with Tom Gresham, is you don't always hear, you don't always catch it when he's trying to interrupt me and ask me a question, or when the music starts to play. You don't always hear that. You can tell that as you listen to other callers, and that's kind of the way it is. So if I'm ignoring him trying to ask me a question, that's what that's about. Whereas we're sitting in the same room, which we did that once too. I guess that was at Pittsburgh at the NRA convention, where I was on his show live, and so it was easier to know when he had a next question to ask, or that kind of thing. So anyway, going to give you a clue about that. Oh, I know something I was going to ramble about a little bit. I watched part of High Noon this week. It was on, I guess, the Westerns channel. I caught part of that. It reminded me, I like that movie. I like the actors, actresses. It's a classic. But it's also one of those movies of that genre where the writers, the directors, they make the townspeople and everybody out to be sheep, total sheep, And if I put my mind to it, I could probably come up with about 10 movie titles like that are similar to that, and in many, many more where there's that going on to some extent in the movie, where the townspeople, I'm talking about Westerns and the Old West, and you know what I'm talking about if you watch Westerns. Quite often, the people of the town, the store clerk, the banker, and all those people, they are made out to be, just so useless if it comes to anything going on where there's bad guys hurrah in the town, or the sheriff needs help. He can't get anyone to help him because they're all afraid they'll be hurt or killed, that sort of thing. Surely most of you realize that really is Hollywood. Now, I'm sure there's some people like that, but my gosh, we're talking about the West. We're talking about people who traveled to get out there and living in a country, an area of the country that if you're not fairly tough, you're not going to make it in the first place. So these are people of adventure to some extent, willing to take chances and risks, and whether it's opening a bank or a general store, whatever they're doing out there, farming, they're accustomed to handling problems on their own, for one thing, living out there where there's very little law. So, and they're most of them, the vast majority, would be quite familiar with firearms and have relied on firearms for hunting, protection. And so when the sheriff needs help, generally speaking, not going to be a problem. Not going to be a problem getting help, And there are actual historical accounts, where that is, like in, the Northfield, Minnesota bank robbery and the James Gang, all those, they got shot up by all these townspeople. They weren't going to have any of that. They were ready for them. And I mean, just keep that in mind if you're ever watching, especially if you're a young person. The West was not like that. That is exaggerated. I mean, I just know people. If our sheriff today in the county where I lived put out the word he needed 50 people, men or whatever, they'd be there. They would be there. When I was a reserve deputy, there was never a shortage of people willing to help out and be reserve deputies. There really were not, ever. And willing to go into harm's way. And that's in current times. So I was just, that's one, and that's what Hollywood does, though. And they get these ideas, and these conveniences, these facts that are really not facts, but they're convenient. They're convenient for the story, for the plot line. You can't have a movie, you can't have a story like High Noon, where the sheriff, and some of you are not even familiar with, here I am talking like everybody knows what that movie's about. The bad guys are coming in and they're going to take over the town, and the sheriff can't get anybody to help him out, defend the town, that sort of thing. But this kind of fiction, pieces of fiction, it just plays into what Hollywood needs to carry out a plot line like that. You don't have a story. You cannot have a story like that if you base it on reality. It's that simple. That makes a great story. The poor sheriff needs help, and everybody's afraid to help him because they don't want to get hurt. And the whole story is based on that. The entire screenplay. Well, yeah, makes for a good story, except it's not too realistic, It's like a lot of the other conventions that you see in the Westerns. It's funny. Like if you get hit on the head with something and you get knocked out, you never die from that, right? You never die. You get hit hard enough that it puts you out. And then in an hour you wake up and everything's back to normal. Well, that's a Hollywood convention. It's really a cool way to put someone out of action that you need to have out of action. And maybe it's the star. Without killing him. You don't want to kill off the star, the main character, so maybe you have somebody hit him over the head, or if it's a secondary actor, it doesn't matter. But somebody, you don't want to have a murder, you don't want to have a killing. That'd be kind of violent for the situation. Maybe it's someone knocks the owner of the bank over the head and robs the bank, or breaks someone out of jail and hits a sheriff or a deputy on the head. Well, he just knocks him out. It's just a nice convention. It's like having a hypodermic full of some kind of sleeping solution, and serves the same purpose. Whereas you look at the reality of that, ask your family doctor. Could I take a gun barrel and hit my brother on the head with it hard enough to knock him out? Would that work? And he'd be fine in about 30 minutes. Well, he might have a concussion. He might be dead. Same with getting shot in the arm or leg. How many times in Westerns do you see guys, the sheriff, the main character, how many times you reckon Cheyenne Bodie or John Wayne, and you name it, any star, was shot in the arm? And then it's like just getting a bee sting, basically, right? Well, I don't think you or I want to get shot in the arm and have a bullet go through our arm, shatter the bone, hit the bone. That is not good. But it's funny what Hollywood does, and of course that's just Westerns. So you get a lot of the same stupid stuff in modern movies. Maybe not as much in some ways, but then in other ways maybe more. So anyway, kind of interesting stuff. I guess I better quit yakking here. I think I've been yakking a long time again, and I hope you guys get a good chance to shoot or to fondle some wonderful firearms this week. I will. If you don't get to, I'll do it for you. How's that? We'll be posting some more videos coming up. Got some shotgun action. Haven't seen that for a while. A little revolver action. Got some, what do we have? We got several things will be popping up here over the next few weeks. And got some more stuff I want to do while those are in progress. So you guys take care, and I will talk to you later. Life is pretty good. You've been listening to the HIckok45 radio show. See you on the range.